philosopher, wrote, "Richard, we cannot trust you anymore. How you can go to Christianity after a full knowledge of all the philosophical and scientific explanations proving that it is false." I thought, wow, I had a full knowledge. Yeah. I thought I'd better not tell my ex-wife's lawyer. In fact, as time has passed, I realize now that as I listen to atheists speaking and reasoning against religion, I have to say, well, yeah, I know where you're coming from. Not only do I understand what you're saying, but I've said it myself. I understand that perfectly. Absolutely. If you want to look down through a microscope into the philosophy books and the science books, that's all right. It's just that God has allowed me to look up, and all of a sudden, everything changes. Obviously, people ask me questions like, well, how do you know it was a Christian God? One guy wrote and said, "I think you've had a temporary brain infection, you should get counselling." I wrote back to him a few weeks ago, I said, well, 3 years on, my temporary brain infarction. Do you know what a brain infarction is? You don't, neither do I. There was an article about me in the Christian Post recently, where somebody wrote it a temporary brain infraction. But it's not, it's a brain infarction. And I had one, and it's still going strong, and I'm very, very happy that it continues to be moving along. Right, what happened to the collapse of that? You know that Richard Dawkins is a very famous guy. He's written a lot of books and sold a lot of books. His book, The God Delusion, was the #1 in the New York Times bestseller list for a long time. And he's Richard Dawkins. Please don't get us mixed up. Richard Dawkins, I'm Richard Morgan. I don't want people to confuse us. A short while afterwards, I was introduced to a Christian radio in London called Premier Community Radio. And they invited me to come on the radio to discuss my experience with David Robertson. It's a show which goes out on a Saturday afternoon called Unbelievable, where they try to confront believers and atheists. So on this show there was David Robertson and myself and some atheists they dragged out of the woodwork from somewhere. I just add something to you here. My conversion experience was so dramatic and powerful and unexpected that I said something to the people in the studio which made them laugh, but I was perfectly serious. I said to Justin Brierley, who runs the show, "So you always have an atheist for the debate to record?" Yes. And I said, well, isn't that a bit nerve-wracking? What are you going to do for your show if the atheist gets converted on the train on his way here? I said, do I have to pray so he doesn't get converted yet? But it was a serious concern. How do you know somebody's going to be an atheist? At the time you start recording. They've got the soundproof doors which keeps the Holy Spirit out as well. No conversions allowed. And all I did on the show was to talk about my experience, and of course my unhappy experience of the Richard Dawkins site. It could have all ended there. That could have been the end of it. But unfortunately, somebody posted on Richard Dawkins' site a link to this radio program, which turned out later to be the program from Premier Radio, Unbelievable, which has been the most downloaded in the history, the iPod, the MP3. And you can imagine the reaction of the Richard Dawkins fans to my comments on the radio about the Richard Dawkins site. It became so foul and disgusting. In fact, it even became slanderous. People advised me to take legal action as regards what was being said about me. I didn't, of course. But it became so disgusting that Richard Dawkins, who was in the middle of promoting the launch of his new book, The Greatest Show on Earth, he came online to insult me and to ask the site administrator to close the site down, saying this is the most appalling discussion, the discussion, this is the most appalling discussion I've ever seen. This is Richard Dawkins, who had always encouraged his fans to insult Christians. He realized that what was curiously happening was, I said, on his site, they say nasty things. They posted the link to my radio program, and they said nasty things. The proof came out in reality. Shortly afterwards, he tried to organize things in such a way that there was some kind of moderation so that that wouldn't happen. There were some problems of communication with the site administrator, Josh. They had to close the site down. And you can imagine all these anonymous God-haters. They were deprived of their space, their favorite space for insulting God. And so all the insults that had been directed against Christians, and then against yours truly, got directed against Richard Dawkins. And it was really a disastrous moment for him. And I felt sorry for him because it was a tragically painful experience for him. The site is up again now in a rather a different way. I don't go back there because I think there is a time when you decide that you don't want to get turned into a pillar of salt. And that's very much how I feel like it. I just wanted to say to you that what is just incredible to me and thrilling and exciting, that I did nothing to look for this experience that I had on April the 12th. I was not looking for God. I was fairly certain he didn't exist. I knew all the reasons which explained why religion existed, why different religions exist. And as somebody said, I just got ambushed by the love of God. And today, what keeps me going every day is this knowledge that we can love because he loved us first. Speak to any psychologist, they'll tell you that that makes sense. In this life, you cannot give what you haven't received. And nothing is truer than when you say that about love. You can't truly love, I'm sorry to say this to you, you cannot truly love somebody else unless you've received love. Maybe you're fortunate enough in having parents who loved you adequately, and I'm very, very happy for you. But your parents were probably human beings and probably imperfect. And that when you have known the unprovable experience of the love of God, my friends, I promise you, that changes everything. I finished. Not me. If you have any questions, being as I'm Welsh in origin, the first 3 questions are completely free. I'm making an effort for you. Thank you very much. Do you have any questions? No, that's okay. Yes, sir.
You initially said that when you were a missionary, you were actually seeking acceptance.
Human acceptance,
Human
yes.
Acceptance. And would you say a lot of these atheists on the Dawkins site are actually seeking the same type of acceptance?
Not only would I say it, I have said it publicly more than once. You are absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And the ones who seek most attention, if you want to find an attention seeker on one of those sites, just look at the people who accuse other people of being attention seekers. David Robertson got accused of being an attention seeker, and he was. He was, but he wasn't seeking attention for himself. I'll let you work out for whom he was seeking the attention. Yeah, it's a very, very good point that you make. Yeah. In fact, if I can just elucidate a bit further, I have this weird characteristic, I think it's a genetic anomaly, is that I like people. I really do like people. I'm looking at you, and in spite of your faces, I really like you. I understand that not everybody can be handsome. I mean, handsome, yeah. So I wanted to go further than just exchanges on the site, and often I would, actually messenger chat with people. I'll be right with you. And I even had phone conversation with people. And these people who are the most violent and the vile and the cleverest, the saddest human stories that I heard would break your heart. Absolutely break your heart. One of the most brilliant posters on the site, I spoke to him and he was drunk. He said he had to drink because he couldn't accept his homosexuality. And he was just a broken person, and his social life was seeking to be accepted on the Richard Dawkins site. Absolutely. It was so tragic. In fact, my human contact thing explains why some of them turned so violently against me afterwards. They thought, oh, what have I said to this guy who's now betrayed us all and become a Christian? Of course, they had nothing to worry about. And I never did say anything about anybody. Obviously not. But you're absolutely right. Broken people seeking acceptance, looking for L-O-V-E. Aren't we all? Yes? Why do I think that Christians don't? Well, I don't know if they don't. My experience has been that atheists and Christians are very, very imperfect human beings. That's been my experience. I think that many Christians have experienced the same kind of love that I have experienced, and logically, inevitably, when you receive God's love so fully, all of a sudden you need human acceptance rather less. But it's a very interesting question, that. I don't have a full answer to it, I'm afraid. Can I come back to you on that in 10 years? When I got a bit more experience. That's right, yes. And of course, can I just add, all this stuff about genes and everything. I mean, I've been involved in genes and everything for 25 years. And what Perry doesn't know is I'm going to tell you about a third epiphany experience that I had, and it's all his fault. And it was, in its way, not perhaps a life-changing experience, but a perception-changing experience. I was a Christian. I got involved in a Christian community, and my life changed in many significant ways. As far as I was concerned, evolution happened. That was perfectly obvious. I had no problems with that. God is God. Science and matter is there. God is supreme, regardless of what we may see or be able to see. In the last analysis, it's all up to God.